Now, President Trump has officially pardoned Scooter Libby, the former top aide to Vice President Dick Cheney, who was convicted 11 years ago of obstruction of justice and lying to the FBI. Those charges against him were related to the leaking of Valerie Plame's identity. She was a covert CIA officer. CBS News Chief White House correspondent Major Garrett joins us now to talk about this. Major, how is President Trump justifying this decision?
A couple of reasons. One, there was a recantation of testimony in the Scooter Libby case in 2015 by a key witness, Judith Miller. That testimony suggested then that prosecutors withheld from her relevant details that would have changed what she testified to about Scooter Libby. Part of that testimony was relevant in the ultimate decision to convict Scooter Libby of obstructing justice and perjury. Then, a year later, in 2016, when Scooter Libby and his attorneys appealed to the D.C. Federal Circuit Court of Appeals to have his law license in the District of Columbia reestablished, it was granted, suggesting that there was something amiss with the prosecution of Scooter Libby and that he should not stand outside of legal practice here in Washington, D.C. Those two things led to a broader conversation that's gone on for quite some time in conservative Republican circles that Scooter Libby should receive a full pardon, not just a commutation of his sentence, which he received from George W. Bush, then president, in 2007, but a full-blown pardon. What's interesting about this and the timing of it is that this idea was presented to President Trump, at least in general, about a pardon for Scooter Libby many, many months ago. The ball was put in motion by then Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. So why is it happening now? What is the connection, or is there any connection possibly with James Comey's highly critical release of President Trump? There is, and the linkage is this. Part of the sense in conservative circles that Scooter Libby was prosecuted unfairly is because James Comey appointed Patrick Fitzgerald, the prosecutor who handled the Libby case. And therefore, if there was any prosecutorial misconduct, Comey should have known about it, should have stepped in. There's a sense in conservative circles that because Comey and Patrick Fitzgerald are longtime and well-established friends, that Comey did not fulfill the obligations of justice in the Scooter Libby case. So now this pardon falls right in the middle of a beginning of debate between this White House, supportive Republicans, and James Comey about this book that Comey has written accusing the president of lots of things, among them running the presidency like a mob boss and other highly critical assessments. So it's hard to see this pardon happening in isolation. It's happening in a context. As a matter of fact, Errol, this morning here on the driveway, Kellyanne Conway, counselor to President Bush, told reporters, while not confirming that this pardon was coming, did say many believe that the prosecution of Scooter Libby was by a special counsel run amok. I don't think I need to take you very far down the road to get you to understand that's what this White House has long implied, in some cases said publicly, about special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. So these things are coming together, not coincidentally.
Precisely, and the link appears clear. Major, today Valerie Plame appeared on cable news television saying this isn't about her, this isn't about Scooter Libby, this is about, in her view, Paul Manafort, Mike Flynn, and in her view, Jared Kushner. What risks does this pardon pose to President Trump in the wake, amid this massive Russia investigation?
Well, I laid out what the White House and those who are sympathetic to it will consider are the possible linkages between Comey, the Libby prosecution, and the necessity of a pardon. But there's another side to that equation. What did President Trump say on Twitter about James Comey in denouncing his book just this morning? He's a leaker and a liar. Well, what is the pardon of Scooter Libby for? The prosecution of someone who obstructed justice and did not tell the FBI the truth about what? The identification in public of a covert CIA operative, leaking and lying. So in that sense, there is an umbrella of irony over this entire pardon consideration. and process. That's something that's also going to be debated in the public relations sphere. And to Valerie Plame's point, what she is saying is Michael Flynn lied to the FBI, accepted a plea agreement. Paul Manafort has several indictments that he's going to have to deal with. I'm not exactly sure what she considers the Jared Kushner linkage to be, but she's perhaps insinuating that there could be some legal jeopardy for Jared Kushner. We don't know about that. Certainly none has been put in the public domain. But it is worth pointing out that a lot of the Scooter Libby case is exactly about Valerie Plame, because it was without precedent for a CIA covert operative to be unveiled, essentially unmasked, by the administration for which she worked in the context of a broader political argument about the underlying reasons to invade Iraq, which is what was at the center of Valerie Plame's public identity as a result of leaks from the Bush administration.
Very fascinating stuff. Major Garrett joining us from the White House. Thank you, Major.
Sure.